live and online. It's Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski.
Better than ever, it's Sleepless with Steve, live on YouTube. We come to you live and in living color every Wednesday evening, 6:30 Central Time, pretty much right on the money here. Grateful for it. Gruesome twosome with you today. Dominic Guanzon and myself here to talk Project Hail Mary, the biggest movie so far in 2026. We got a lot to kind of unpack with this thing, but kind of getting like Sinners vibes in a way for like an original movie that just came out of the gate with gangbusters and a lot of fanfare. Social media is ablaze with this thing. It's already one of the highest rated movies on average on Letterboxd. Getting a lot of vibes to last year's Sinners as far as just how loved this thing is out the gate. I guess you could also say Oppenheimer too, just being an original story, even though Oppenheimer obviously based on real life events and things like that. This movie's not really tethered to a franchise. It is based off a book by Andy Weir. We've got a lot to discuss, though, in regards to Project Hail Mary, and the two of us are going to do just that over the course of the hour here on Sleepless with Steve. Dominic, I appreciate you hosting in Joe's absence today. How are you, my friend?
I am doing A-OK. It's been a very busy week trying to catch up with my life after coming back from an overseas trip, and we are full throttle. Spring is here. Spring is actually here now, and I think you're right. Even officially, yeah. But regardless, the weather has come, so I'm very excited to at least get some. What do you call it? That seasonal effectiveness disorder goes away.
Seasonal depression, or
yeah, probably like that.
Something like that. It's just nice to like. I have no problem needing a jacket in the morning and then not needing it by like 11 o'clock. You know what I mean? It's beautiful out here today. We still got mounds of snow that are melting, which is funny. You know, it's like, and I knew this was going to happen because we got like 8 inches of snow and then it warmed up to 70 in like 5 days. I knew this was going to happen because it's like the only thing about this time of year I hate. The relief is great and the spring weather is great. The smell is different outside. The only thing I fucking hate about this time of year, and it's only if we have melting snow still, is that when the snow melts, it just reveals a season's worth of filth and disgust on curbs and like on the road and in parking lots. You know what I'm talking about. It's just disgusting to look at, but the relief is just palpable. And it feels like the unofficial start of a new movie season when you get a movie left.
Did I just lose your audio? Hold on. I think I just lost your audio.
I see my audio has cut out here.
Okay.
I see I get notification.
You're back.
I get a delayed notification for some reason when this thing like doing it again. I don't know if it's port or what. Can you still hear me okay?
I can hear you right now. We'll see how that
about
holds.
now?
Yeah.
How about now?
Yes.
Okay, this is going to be fun. Try not to touch my computer, I suppose.
You're like a space capsule floating further and further away from Earth, and I can't reach you.
Project Hail Mary, however, this is the new movie by Phil Lord and Chris Miller. Any guesses as to what the last movie Phil Lord and Christopher Miller directed? These are the guys behind the Lego Movie, and without looking at their filmography, they're more producers than they really are directors and filmmakers. Any guesses as to the last movie these two directed?
Together.
I got it wrong. I thought it was Mitchell's versus the Machines.
That was going to be my guess. Yeah.
They didn't direct that.
Okay.
They produced that. The last thing they directed was 22 Jump Street. Back
really?
in 2014.
That was going to be my second guess, but I thought it was going to be a weak one. Okay.
And you know what? I had to remember this when I was writing my review. I forgot about this. They directed like 2/3 of Solo, a Star Wars story, and then got fired.
Huh.
And then Ron Howard stepped in. Doesn't that feel like a distant memory? Solo, a Star Wars story. That was they directed like 2/3 of that movie, and then they got fired. And now they finally achieved and made their own Star Wars movie, I guess you could say,
Hmm.
with Project Hail Mary. So yeah, Lord and Miller, the guys behind the Lego movie, the Lego Ninjago movie, all those different movies that have been some of the most successful animated features of the last, 15 years or so. They're back with Project Hail Mary based on the Andy Weir book. This is a movie that stars Ryan Gosling. And it is a sci-fi epic, is what it is. Very humanistic sci-fi epic that, in so many words, revolves around Ryan Gosling, who plays a man named Ryland Grace, who wakes up aboard a spacecraft with like retrograde amnesia, has no memory of how he got there or what he's supposed to be doing. He's the only one aboard this ship. Well, he starts getting his memory back, and we start seeing via flashbacks that he was sent on Project Hail Mary, basically a long shot mission to investigate why a star in the galaxy, unlike the remaining stars around it, has not dimmed due to energy siphoning from what is known as the Petrova line, which goes from the sun to Venus, which is basically gradually dimming the sun and could lead to the wiping out of humans on Earth in the next 3, 4 decades, something like that. I believe I tried to streamline that explanation as cogently as I could.
Yeah.
Um, that's the best I could do. But he wakes up aboard this ship. He slowly starts getting his memory back, and there's a wonderful, wonderful montage early on of him like shaving his beard and combing his hair to a song that is not used in media much, but it's one of my favorite country songs, "Sunday Morning Coming Down" by Johnny Cash. And I was so delighted when that appeared. That song that's about a drunk and another hangover, and he's like tidying himself up on a spaceship. That was one of the winsome moments of the movie. Eventually, though, and what's really the crux of this thing is he meets this blocky, stony alien creature that he names Rocky, and he develops this like communication technology that uses Rocky's echolocation in order to communicate with him, and that's what A Lion's Way to the movie is. There's other characters, Sandra Hüller, who was in the Oscar-nominated movie last year, Anatomy of a Fall. She's in this as one of the scientists alongside Lionel Bass. He is also one of the scientists in this. Lionel Boyce, excuse me. But yeah, Project Hail Mary. This thing's 2 hours and 36 minutes. It's a sci-fi epic. And just like in space, there's a lot of directions we can go with this. Where do you want to start, Dom?
I think for me, it's well. Yeah, I'm just gonna go with the approach here. Right at the top is that as someone who very much enjoyed Andy Weir's other adapted work by Ridley Scott, The Martian, this very much I was thinking about that the whole time, which is good because I love The Martian
I did too.
in the sense that this is, I mean, you are dealing here with like the worst case of Lost at Sea possible in both cases, but at least, and even and additionally in Project Hail Mary, you even have a dude who's like, oh, the entire fate of the world really does rest on this one guy. And that's raising the stakes even further. You have loneliness, you have depression, you have just absolute bleakness for a mission that may not succeed and is a one-way trip. But the lightheartedness and, as you said, humanistic approach to this subject matter, to this whole style, is really what just keeps things engaged. And I'm just happy to report that initially I was kind of going like, okay, the title doesn't really do a lot for me, and this seems a little generic. Where is it gonna go? But then the competency at which this plot is handled, in my opinion, and the pacing at 2.5 hours, I'm impressed that the pacing is as good as it was. I'm not gonna say it's perfect. I'm not gonna say things were necessarily breezy, but it handled it a lot better than I thought it would. Didn't I was scared that this might float into like a 3 hour thing, but thankfully it didn't. And just the general vibe of it, the feel of it, I'm very happy that this is a Lord and Miller production for sure.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you're saying there too. Sorry if my mic's a little bit wonky here. I'm trying to make sure that I'm staying reasonably connected over here. Yeah, no, I love The Martian. That came out 11 years ago, and that was a movie that I didn't know anything about Andy Weir going into that too. And Andy Weir has not published a lot. He's published, I think, 4 books, and now 2 of them are movies. And I don't know him. I don't know his background or anything like that. I don't read as much as I want to, or that I should. But especially not fiction, really. But Andy seems to be, just judging based on his stories, seems to be the type of writer. And this is hard. It's hard enough to be a good writer. I'm not even calling myself that. But it's hard enough to be a good writer. You are in a different class of writers when you can take complicated information and concepts like these, like The Martian and Project Hail Mary, and you don't dumb it down, but you democratize it to make it accessible. And that's what I think makes Project Hail Mary as a movie. And Drew Goddard wrote the script, just to get it accurate here. But the most impressive thing about this movie is the same thing that impressed me with The Martian, in a different way, though, is that this is the kind of movie, Hail Mary more so, that it just feels like a throwback blockbuster. I'm not calling it like a family movie, though it absolutely fits the bill. This is one of those movies that feels like it could appeal to a 9-year-old or a 90-year-old, and everybody in between. And it doesn't do so in a pandering way. Like, this is not a movie that tries to go for cheap jokes, or a movie that, like, parents won't get invested in because it's a little bit more directed to kids. This is really in an era of like specification when it comes to like media and podcasts and even movies, where it's made for specific audiences, like quadrant 1, quadrant 2 type shit. This is one of those rare works, I think. And it says something, because it's hard to write something like this, especially as accessible as it is. This is one of those rare movies that just feels like an 80s, 90s throwback blockbuster, insofar that it's kind of made for everybody.
Yeah. No, it's like back when they knew how to make real movies, am I right? But regardless, the screenplay here by Drew Goddard does so much to it's a straightforward. It's not a straight. It's a the way it slams you with where it drops you in the middle of the mission, and then it hits you with flashbacks from there, mirroring the character's kind of amnesia as well. But the journey that you go in those 2.5 hours is really, there's the acts in here are almost clearly defined, even though they're not like obviously stated, in the sense that, okay, we have the human mission part, or the prep, even though it's broken up, and then you have the actual meeting of the secondary character here. That man, now that you mention it, I'm glad you made that 80s 90s comparison, because I wasn't even actively thinking about it. I was too focused on the Martian kind of association, but because it really is like that. Hey, it's like an ET kind of thing, where not the plot wise, but just a buddy, an alien buddy who's not a threat, and that's almost refreshing in a way, right? Maybe I'm getting my timelines wrong, but I feel like it's been a minute since we've had a friendly alien in a live action movie. I'm sure. Do you remember
Spaceman, the Adam Sandler movie?
I do not. I know you mentioned that.
You
in the
don't.
Chat.
You don't remember it, but I can assure you, yeah, there was a giant spider in that movie who was very friendly and philosophical.
Okay.
And he talked to Adam Sandler and was voiced by Paul Dano.
Paul Dano. Okay.
It worked. It was one of the more workable elements of that movie.
I can believe it. But the journey here is just so fun. It's just so fun. And even if it's, I dare say basic? Not in a bad way. I mean that in the literal sense of the term. Like, is it just kind of a straightforward plot minus the jumping around? I think that's where I'm leaning towards. And that's how impressive it is. Because we've seen every single one of these tropes before, right? The friendly alien, figuring out how to communicate with this otherworldly being. The world is ending. One-way suicide mission, etc. Man lost in space, isolated. These are all things we've seen before. And they've been remixed before, long before this movie. but still, the fact that we're still able to nail this landing, for me, is it's impressive. It's impressive.
Yeah, and I'll say too, like this is one of those movies, and this is in part a criticism, but it's also an observation. This is kind of like a greatest hits compilation of sci-fi
That's
movies.
the best way to put it. Thank you. Yeah.
You know, not in a nostalgic overbearing
Right.
sense. It's not in the way of like it's not obvious to the point where it's like you're recalling things from like this scene. Oh, that's ET. That's Contact. It's not like that. It's just the air of the movie is very much rooted in familiarities. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that. Like even with the flashbacks, and I would say in a 2.5 hour movie, the flashbacks are probably 45, 50 minutes of the thing about. Um, what you have though is essentially kind of a one man show. The a Lion's Way to the movie is on Ryan Gosling's shoulders.
Mhm.
And in the same way that like Moon with Sam Rockwell was, in the same way Gravity was George Clooney and Sandra Bullock, not a space movie, but Castaway with Tom Hanks. Very similar in that sort of structure, where again, the success of the movie is largely predicated on that of Gosling.
Yeah, from the moment you meet him with his high pitched scream, the dude is just likable. That's the thing. He's just freaking likable. I've liked him for the longest time. Doesn't help that he's handsome as shit, but he's just a fantastic actor, and he does carry the movie, and he can carry any movie practically. So when it comes to his performance and his interaction, he can still nail it. He can still nail acting against. I read that the production here was like it was like a team of 5 puppeteers doing like Doc Ock stuff from Spider-Man 2, where they're just yeah, puppeteering in front of him, and he has to act against that. I'm like, how the frick do you do that shit? It's been done millions of times before, but it still impresses me.
Yeah, I'll say that it's definitely a challenge for him because, like I said, acting with an inanimate object has got to be one of the hardest things to do. And we don't really see the behind the scenes. I mean, you can if you look for it, but you're not given direct access to it often, so it's hard to kind of put into the mind of what it is, of how that experience is, other than like anecdotal. But the thing that I'll say though that I've followed now Ryan Gosling really has, been in movies now for almost 20 years, leading roles too. I go back and I think of like The Ides of March and movies like from the 2010s. What's funny about Gosling now is I remember when he was sort of like in the 2010s, he was sort of like this brooding loner in a lot of movies when he was working with Nicholas Winding Refn, like Drive and Only God Forgives and The Place Beyond the Pines
Mm.
and movies like that. And then somewhere in the evolution of his career, like I think he looked in a mirror or something and realized how good looking he is. And was like, man, and the 1,000 watts smile like a young Brad Pitt, and was like, and I think playing Ken and Barbie brought something out in him of like just this sort of because I'll be honest with you, like 10 years ago, 12 years ago, I didn't see this side of him. I didn't know if he had it in him to do things like this. I think that he does a good job here being very emotionally vulnerable
Yeah.
and sort of lighthearted. And it helps to like he's a middle school teacher in the movie. He's a middle school teacher. He's like punching below his intellect level. He's got a doctorate in molecular biology. So he's like, like working like on middle school projects and stuff like that. He doesn't have like a spouse, he doesn't have a dog even or anything like that too. And he gets the opportunity to be an advisor on this mission, and the whole time he's like this like why me sort of thing. There's a great little miniature plot in the first half of this movie about like how the only original idea he had is disproven, and right off the bat though, there's a likability to him immediately where he's qualified yet he's really not. He's unsure of himself. He's clearly lacking not so much as a person but just like in the part of the human experience too, which makes his dialogue and his relationship with Rocky that much more special and how he has to work for it too. That's the other thing. It's not just like a given instant connection. Like he has, I mean, first he's got to figure out how the hell to communicate with the thing. Then he's got to build something to make communication easier. And then he's got to learn to live with the thing. So there's kind of like this stages of relationship building with this movie. It's not automatic, like love at first star kind of thing with him either, which I think is another reason this movie lands as well as it does, is because it's like there's actual you're watching the actual like relationship building throughout the thing.
Yeah, it's a working relationship, but a relationship nonetheless. And it between an alien and him, and yeah, I just enjoy it. It's refreshing. It's refreshing that these two don't. I'm glad that there really wasn't even that much hostility between the two. I enjoy.
No,
that.
there's never there's not the obligatory fight or anything like that. There's not even. I mean, quite frankly, there's not even a villain in this thing.
Yeah, that's very
There's
true. Yeah.
there's no villain here. And it doesn't feel soft because of it. There's stakes. There's not a villain. And that alone is refreshing in a sci-fi movie too, especially with how conditioned we've gotten to Marvel recently and things like that too. But yeah, I will say though that like the one aside from that though, I will be this guy here. And I don't know. I've not read like there's not really much criticism levied at this movie yet, like negative reviews, and there shouldn't be, I don't think. But I'm gonna be this person though. The only the only thing that bothered me with this movie, and Gosling is like the best part of the movie, and it's more of Drew Goddard's writing of the thing. There's times though when this thing is just too unserious. There's
Really?
times when sort of the quippiness, like the constant desire to have Gosling's grace always make a joke, sort of wore on me. None greater than the third act scene where he's coming face to face with the scientists about the reality of the mission. And how his involvement could expand in the mission, and he says something like, "I put the knot in astronaut," and at that point it's like, gee, like this is kind of Lord and Miller's style, though I know they didn't write it, but like where their animation style is very manic and very stylized, hyper stylized, you can tell their writing influence. Like they try to keep it lighthearted, and it works for the most part. But there's times when this thing just feels too unserious given the gravity of what's at stake. And that irked me a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree just because I would need to watch the movie again. But I think I can see what you're saying because it comes out. It just like cracks in the. I mean, look, the aesthetic of this movie is actually, from what I've read here on Wikipedia, that they shot this digitally, transferred it to film, and then redigitized it. So they kind of ran it through like a VCR filter, not literally, but you know what I mean. And
In so many words, they like retrograded it.
and those soft shots really do come through. They got like these beautiful like really thin 16:9 shots where the black bars come out even more. I forget what that's called, but it's a thinner, wider screen, not wider, but a thinner screen. And then before coming back to the more of a full picture, and it's soft, it's warm at times, and it does have this sense of seriousness. And I think it just comes down to minutia. I think you could probably pick one or two moments, and we'd probably agree. But for me, I think I found that the lighthearted moments the balance was good. The balance was good for me. And I'm sure if you showed me the clip, I'd be like, yeah, maybe not. But I think the weight, especially when you're 2 hours in, When you're 2 hours in, could you pinpoint where you were feeling some of these like, okay, do we need to say that? Was it more towards the beginning, the middle, or the end, or is that
It's kind of recurring. It's a little bit more in the end, like that particular scene I cherry picked.
okay? Sure.
But it's like it's just kind of, it was mainly in the scenes with the scientists, more so because when he's with Rocky it's a different vibe, you know what I mean? It's kind of like a child in so many ways, and he's opening up. So like him and his banter with Rocky, I had no problem with that, or I had no misgivings about that. It's more so how he interacts with the scientists that just seems very like almost unbecoming for him. I get he's a middle school science teacher. I get he's kind of like loopy and a little like kind of like what is that, what's that stupid term they I've heard before, like a himbo or something like that from like Barbie. I think that's what they called Ken. But like it's more so with him interacting with the scientists where he feels like it's almost like a comedy sketch of like, let's pluck an actual science teacher and put him around scientists, when it's like this, he's supposed to have a fucking degree in molecular biology. He's not a moron. You know what I mean? He's not teaching the periodic table of elements, and that's like the peak of his science knowledge either. That's the only thing. It's when and it's almost like they did it, and then they cast like Sandra Hüller, who's never smiled a day in her life. They cast Sandra Hüller as the other scientist to kind of make this like dichotomous relationship between like a man who can't help but crack a joke, and a woman who like is stone cold deathly serious. And it felt like they were playing too much into that,
Like a buddy cop
when both
film?
could just be when both can just be individually great.
Buddy cop science fiction movie. But
And I love Sandra Hüller too. I think she's great in this thing. She's got a great karaoke scene in this too.
yeah, that was a really fun scene. How do you feel about the beginning with like the security guards helping him build a science project? We're not going scene by scene here. I just want to know, like, compared to what you were saying, how did you feel about that?
When he's
In the
building
beginning.
that, like,
Yes.
yeah, when he's building that whole thing, yeah, it's a little silly, but by that point it's like the movie was still kind of getting going for me.
Okay.
It wasn't so much like, I just feel like there's a lot of emotional heft in this thing, and a lot of it succeeds, but I do think that there's like at a certain point I became cognizant that of like Gosling's gonna make a joke here, or there's gonna be some sort of like thing to kind of undercut the gravity of what this mission actually is, which is basically a suicide mission. And it just so happened, like, I had this same kind of thing with, and I just recall it because it's Lord and Miller. I had the same kind of thing with the Lego movie, where like by an hour, I mean, it's a great movie, but by like an hour and 20 minutes, it's like, yeah, I get it. Everything's friggin' awesome. I get it. Like, I understand, now the characters, now Emmett's got to be sad here. And then like Solo's harder because of the fact that it's like an existing world,
Yeah.
and you don't really, and the creative liberty offered on those Star Wars movies can sometimes be minimal compared to what an original is. But that's their kind of style. They're both 21, 22 Jump Street are straight comedies too, so you can't really pinpoint those. But that's just kind of what they are. I don't want to say their style is unserious, but they definitely have kind of a aw shucks way about them, in the regard of like, let's try and keep this amiable, and in this case, even in the eyes of like great fate, or like uncertain fate.
Yeah. I do want to talk about how I think I already alluded to it, but the way that the ship is designed, not on externally but internally, is very interesting. And we don't need to get into like the actual illustrative aspects of it, but just the feel of it, and combined with that aforementioned like film look, or that warmer look. I mean, I know it's literally film, but you know what I mean. I think was really cool, because it gave it a better sense of place, and a better, because I was expecting more of like a really sterile kind of thing going on. with something like Project Hail Mary. The title really pisses me. I'm going off a tangent already, but like the title, I don't know why it bothers me. I don't know why it bothers me. I don't know.
Yeah, I could see
It's
that.
not the latent Christianity. I'm not like triggered by that shit or anything, but I think it's just it's too corny for my taste. That, if anything, that's something I take. I take gumption.
It's funny. It's funny. You relate Hail Mary to doctrine, which is totally acceptable. I think of the football play.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that is
Like,
what they're referencing to.
you know, that is kind of what they're referencing here. I think of the football play.
Yeah.
But no, I agree with you. Like Project, I don't know. Like
The
would
whole
the
just the
Hail
look
Mary
of the thing was cool.
would the Hail Mary project offend you less?
Maybe. I
Hail Mary
actually
project?
think it might.
I think it kind of sounds better.
It sounds better. Something about Project Hail Mary sounds very, very basic. And you know what?
It's it's alphabetized. It's an alphabetized title.
Sure,
too.
sure. I don't even know if it's necessarily that. I think you nailed it. I think it's the fact that it's Project Hail. I'm surprised. It would have pissed me off more if there was a colon between Project and Hail. I think it's just basic.
Oh, yeah.
I think it just sounds basic. That's all it is. Like Operation, right? Like Operation Epic Fury.
It's giving you Battle Los Angeles vibes.
Yeah.
Battle Los Angeles, and in the movie it's Battle Los Angeles.
That's a movie.
No, I hear you there. This is not a complaint that affects ratings or anything. No, I think the Hail Mary project might have been better. But I mean that's how these space missions are like titled, like Project whatever, without a colon or anything. But no, I understand, because like I didn't know what the hell it was, tell you the truth. Like I didn't see. We don't watch trailers, Catherine and I've seen the posters and stuff, and I don't read a lot either of fiction, so I didn't know what the hell this thing even was. And then this is how little I pay attention outside of like movies and release dates and maybe who's in them. When I came out of the theater, I was thinking like, oh, how this reminded me of The Martian. And then I look at the ginormous standee in the theater lobby that's been there for like 4 months. And it was like, oh, from the best-selling author of The Martian. I'm like, oh, okay, that makes a whole lot of fucking sense. I'm like, is that the whole time watching this thing? I'm thinking like, man, I remember how much I liked that Martian movie when he grows potatoes on Mars. Like,
that was my favorite scene where it's like, I just colonized Mars. I still remember that scene. I was like, God
I
damn,
too.
this is a goated movie right now.
Yeah, I don't know why. I really liked that movie. I really enjoyed that.
Let's review The Martian. Let's just review The Martian next week.
I wouldn't mind going back and rewatching it. I mean, that was one of those. And you know what's funny about that movie too is that, like, I think I even said this in my review. I'd have to go back and look. But it's one of those movies too, and this kind of has that a little bit. And this is a weird thing to say. I've probably only said it like 5 times in the complete history of the show. But like The Martian, the thing that I remember coming out of it thinking is that it's one of those movies, like maybe more so than Hail Mary, because this one, in The Martian, you're like with him the entire time, if I remember correctly.
It's
like
they do cut back. I distinctly remember Donald Glover. Or they're constantly going back to the Mission Control, I think.
Is it more so Mission Control?
Yes.
Is it more so? Okay.
Yeah. And then a scene with Donald Glover, yeah.
For some reason, maybe my mind blocked more of that out, because it was just I liked spending time with Matt Damon on Mars so much. But it was one of those movies, and I don't say this very often because it doesn't really happen. But it was kind of like after I watched that movie, there was like, I kind of almost felt like leaving the theater. I kind of felt like I lived it. You know what I mean? Like you're so like inextricably tied to the stakes and everything to it. You kind of come out of it almost a little exhausted just because of the fact that so much happened in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
And movies have that. Movies can have that effect on you. Like after you watch them, you almost feel like you lived it in a weird way. I know you didn't write the scripts, but Andy Weir, he's something of a good writer. When we come back, get more of your thoughts on this too. This is fittingly germane. Actually, when I was writing the review, I was thinking about this. Last week we recapped the Oscars, and we were talking about the best original score category. And Don brought up the great point. We've talked about this on the show before, but we need to talk about score more in general. The score here is phenomenal, and I'm not talking the soundtrack. I'm talking the Daniel Pemberton music for the movie. it stuck out to me watching the movie how great of a score this is. There's some great arrangements in this movie that do a perfect job of accentuating mood and tone without overdoing it. And I'll table more of that for after the intermission. Again, it's Sleepless with Steve. We come to you live and in living color every Wednesday evening at 6:30 Central Time. Just me and Dominic Guanzon tonight talking Project Hail Mary, the new Ryan Gosling movie that has already proven itself to be a big success right out of the gate. We're going to be back here in just a couple of minutes. Don't go anywhere. It is Sleepless with Steve live on YouTube. It is back, or back and better than ever, back from our Zoom-sponsored intermission. It is back in
It is
Sleepless
back.
with Steve. You know? Man, oh man, threw me off on that. Usually I'm really good at the intros and outros, if nothing else. We're back after a Zoom-sponsored intermission. It is Sleepless with Steve. Before I touch on score, Dom, is there anything else that you wanted to touch on for Project Hail Mary? Anything else top of mind in regards to this movie?
Just that, man. I kind of just want to watch The Martian again. Not in the sense that this movie's bad, but it's these feels just cannot separate them. So it's almost like a spiritual sequel for some reason.
Oh, it is. It feels like it.
Yeah, I mean it's the same dude who wrote the original story. I know, but it's like, yeah, sure. Matt Damon got lost in space, and they took all those lessons and applied it to Ryan Gosling. Oh boy.
I'll say I love the score of this thing. Daniel Pemberton's score is wonderful here. Daniel Pemberton has done a lot, and what's funny is he's done a lot of movies, and a lot of these I remember commenting on the score. He's done Steve Jobs, the Aaron Sorkin film, Motherless Brooklyn. That was a movie that was really good and underseen. He did Trial of the Chicago 7. And then this one, I remember this one. This is the one. This is like one of those movies.
Enola Holmes 2.
Enola Holmes 2. And that one as well. That was something. The other one, I think back to this movie and wished it was better. Being the Ricardos. Remember that?
Oh, is that
the Lucy Nicole Kidman and Javier
Bardem as yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say the I Love Lucy biopic. That's another one of those things where I'm like, streaming is a form of Stockholm syndrome. You know, I'm like, oh yeah, there was that Being the Ricardos movie. Anyway, though, no, I loved his score in this thing. I thought, and maybe it's just my conditioning of like, there's so many space movies. Looking at you, Hans Zimmer, that overdo the score and make it so bass heavy and thunderous and loud. And this just was like almost like jazz in a weird way, where it just kind of felt very germane to what's happening. It's appropriately bouncy at times, even when there's like a downbeat sort of sad moment in the movie, it doesn't harp on it. It goes down tempo, but like almost like a loungy sort of down tempo in a way, where it's like almost like an all hope isn't lost sort of undercurrent in this thing. It was one of the first great scores of the year that I've heard in a movie. I loved what this thing did, what Daniel Pemberton did. I thought that heightened the mood of this thing tenfold.
Yeah, I think I have to agree. Just the triumph scenes where it's like this and this choir that's just pure victor. I don't remember if it was a choir exactly, but I think it was, and it was just so triumphant. It felt so good. Just a release that, like you said, we do not get in like a Zimmer situation. Which, not to knock on him, it's just a very nice.
I don't want to. I don't want to like.
It's not a criticism of
Zimmer.
Get
on him, but it's
refreshing in a way, you know.
We had when we reviewed Tenet on this show years ago, Christopher Nolan. Like I said when we were reviewing it, I'm like, man, imagine spending 2 hours and 40 minutes watching the most implausible, confusing shit on the face of the earth, and then every 5 minutes your TV goes boom. That got to be like the peaking of or like the lowest point of Zimmer for me, where I'm like, Jesus Christ, you don't have to sit on the keyboard, to like evoke a mood. And Catherine and I actually had this conversation too. And I'll add this. It doesn't seem germane, but hear me out. One problem with movies, and this is not a new problem, and this is why the theater experience is so great, one of the many reasons, is that you got to remember, especially these big budget Hollywood movies, these movies are optimized for the best of the best, the biggest screens, the best sound systems, and everything. Mm-hmm. And which makes sense. These movies have, these studios have bottomless pits of money and access to state-of-the-art technology. What they forget, though, and this is mostly in the realm of sound, more so than visuals, because everybody's got nice TVs that can really show sharpness and color. What they forget about, though, is most people will watch these movies on $200 TVs that do not have external sound systems. They are built into the television, which is why it's part of the reason why our generation, and I've been doing this now for like 8 years, watches movies with subtitles on for added clarity because of the fact that they optimize these movies for the best of the best, that when you watch them on a TV, the sound, especially the mixing, sounds distorted or sounds too like the TV can't process what it's being fed or what is coming out of it. With this though, the score in this movie is so lovely and so, I don't want to say mild, but married so well with the dialogue and mixed so well. I don't know if that's maybe something to do with how this thing was processed. I know that was more of a visual thing. I don't know if it has something to do with how this was processed, but the presentation of this movie is so easy on the eyes and the ears for a movie that takes place in space. And I just don't think we get that a whole lot.
Yeah, I don't think so either. There's a lot. I know Amazon streaming, they do have a specific option, at least for certain TV shows, like the ones that they produce. They have an option to just boost the dialogue, so that it compensates for you automatically, which is a nice feature. Not the shill for Amazon, but I'm going to call it where I see it on that one. I don't know about other, because I was pretty much just watching it for The Boys and the animated one with J.K. Simmons. You know what I'm talking about, Invincible. So get my superhero fix that way. So I'm not sure if other TV shows would be doing that also, but in terms of
it shows I'm not nuts, at least. It shows that this is actually like a feedback that companies are receiving, that like the sound mixing has, and paradoxically, it's gotten better from a production standpoint, but it's gotten worse from a delivery standpoint on part of just average people.
Yeah. I don't think more are gonna adopt to it. I think they're just gonna stick that way because that's where the money. Well, I don't know where the money is 100%, because if anything, it's more towards streaming, right? But people tolerate it, and we're just okay with subtitles now. Not that, for foreign films that's something different, but we're just okay with this sound mixing where we feel the need that it's at home. We just need that.
Have you ever gone, real quick, not to interrupt you, have you ever gone, and I don't mind it, my theater, they don't do them too often. It's maybe like once on the weekend for the biggest movies. You ever go to an open caption showing?
No, what is that?
They'll have the subtitles on the screen.
Okay, there you go. Straight up.
They'll have the subtitles on the screen. It's like one showing a day, or like usually Friday, Saturday, Sunday for the biggest movies. We saw Ready or Not 2 with open caption. Now, I don't seek it, that show. If the showtime is convenient, I will do it. If it's convenient, that's the thing I'm looking for the most, is a convenient showtime. But I like it. I enjoy it. I would I would welcome it on every movie I see, because if I watch a movie or a show, I have the subtitles on. If I'm watching live TV, I tend not to, because of the fact that like the news, the captions are live, so they're delayed a little bit, But I didn't mean to go into a whole subtitle thing over here, though.
No, that's great.
But I'm using it to praise this thing, though, because this thing I just felt was so delicately crafted from an aesthetic point, from the music, from the cinematography, and some of the visuals too. There's a scene towards the end, the third act. There's a scene in the end when it's like, it feels as if like stars and other space sprites are like washing over the characters, and it just looks lovely. Like not a sound and light show kind of thing either, like just kind of a rapturous display of space. You know what I'm talking about? You know what scene I'm talking about at the end?
I think so. Yeah. I think I do. It's hard to relate to the audience exactly, but yeah, I think I do.
It's hard to talk about it without spoiling it too. I don't want to give what leads up to that.
That's also why, yeah.
But I'm like dancing around it. Any other big points though with Project Hail Mary too? Like I did enjoy this thing. I feel like I have, because this thing is so praised and I have a couple criticisms, I feel like I'm the more negative person on this thing, but I did thoroughly enjoy it and do think that this thing is going to have a long shelf life in theaters. And I mean, who knows? I don't think it's a hot take to say this might be the first Oscar contender of the year.
Yeah. Well, I think for technical awards, there's going to be something on here for sure, at least one. for a nomination. We'll see what the rest of the year brings. But I wonder if screenplay is going to be a contender for this.
Adapted screenplay, it could.
Yeah, I mean, look, Damon got the nomination for Martian, so
I know.
I do wonder here if
Gosling has history. Hewler's got history.
Yeah, I do wonder if I know it's early in the season to be talking this, but like, actually, the earliest you could possibly be, but I wonder who was. This is kind of even going back to your earlier criticism of the quippiness and the humor. Who was quippier? Who was more humorous? Was it Damon or was it Gosling in their respective movies?
Oh, I think Gosling for sure.
Really? You think?
I think Gosling for sure. Yeah, just given his occupation and his attitude, I don't remember. Again, I haven't seen it since it was in theaters. Damon had some humorous bits in it too, but you got to remember it was Ridley Scott who was helming the whole thing, and Ridley Scott isn't known for humor either. Like, you know what I mean? He's got some in his movies, but it's very sparing. Where The Martian kind of felt like The Martian, I think, had to kind of sell its premise a little bit more than this does, which is weird to say, but The Martian kind of had to sell its premise a little bit more in the regard of like, just, I guess, like tangential plausibility just for the setup.
Yeah.
I thought Gosling was easy. I mean, this, like I said, this thing was written by the people or this thing was made by the people behind the Lego Movie too, and I felt that. It's not a bad thing because I think Lord and Miller in the realm of animation are responsible for the forward progress of animation in the same way in like the late aughts and early 2010s Judd Apatow was responsible for the success of comedies. I think that they are titans of their own industry. Like, and you want to talk about like, again, I feel like I'm jumping all over the place.
No,
you want to talk about why horror's in such a great place now and why comedy's in such a crappy place right now. Like horror's got all these young entrepreneurial filmmakers like that are, young and old of different man, woman, different creeds and everything like that too. Comedy doesn't have anybody like Judd Apatow anymore who can like find these talented people and give them carte blanche and serve as like a sounding board for their work. That's what Lord and Miller did for Mitchell's versus the Machines, the sequels to the Lego movies and things like that, other sci-fi projects and whatnot. They were basically like contributing producers for younger artists. And now look at where animation is. Look at where comedy was 15 years ago. Like, I think that that's part of the reason comedy suffers is that they don't have figures like that. These really forward-thinking dudes. And these two dudes I learned today, they went to Dartmouth. So they're really smart. I knew they had to be smart, but they went to fucking Dartmouth. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so they're not only just like really creative people, they're very savvy. And it comes through in a project like this. And yeah, I enjoyed this quite a bit. Like, it feels. I think it's so beloved too because it's like a concoction of everything, a concoction of a lot of ingredients that people love about blockbusters and people love about sci-fi movies and things like that.
Yeah, I think so. Do we want to pivot? Here?
I think so. I think I've said my winding raving piece on this thing for a little bit at least. It's a 3 out of 4 stars for me, which might seem a little low, but it's 3 out of 4 stars. I thoroughly enjoyed this thing. I'll be interested. I might give Joe the floor next week.
Yeah.
I might give Joe the floor next week to give his opening or just to give his overall thoughts on this thing.
I am oscillating between 3 and 3.5. I think I will stick to 3. Just because I am thinking about now what you said. Not that it's like letting me down or anything, like bringing me down on the film, but it's more like, yeah, maybe the humor won't hold up. Maybe not the humor, like the quips won't hold up in retrospect. Certainly didn't feel like a Marvel movie, and I'm not saying you were saying that as well. But no. For me, I wonder if it's just because it lended itself to it even better than The Martian, because The Martian that felt like a quip. I think I'm almost the inverse of what your opinion was, because it's like The Martian felt like a quip fest the whole way through. But I was still okay with that. Something about it. I don't know. So, but I think I'll play it a little safe here and go 3 out of 4 stars. But it's definitely I can see it being a 3.5 if I were to watch this again and I were to be in the right mindset. It's an uplifting film, not just in the sense that it has happy moments, but because it's like you mentioned, you nailed it right at the start, like you often do, Steve. Humanistic moments that that really define the best of what sci-fi can be. And I think Project Hail Mary does a really effective personal job at that.
Good stuff. Very well said. Next week, I had to check the calendar though, because I know Joe overhauled the calendar and put a lot of stuff on here because there's really not much coming out this week of note. His suggestion, and I'm willing to go for it though, because this was on my radar: Mike and Nick and Alice on Hulu.
Okay.
What do we? It's called Mike and Nick and Alice.
Okay, this sounds like a potential love triangle, or is it two separate Nicks? I don't know.
I think it's two separate Nicks.
Oh, okay.
It is Vince Vaughn, James Marsden, Isa Gonzalez, and Vince Vaughn.
Did you say Vince Vaughn twice?
Yeah, Vince Vaughn's on the poster twice. He plays two different characters.
Oh,
He plays two different
okay.
characters.
All right. Well, that still sounds whatever. I mean, look, it sounds like it could be great. I don't know, but especially now that it's been a minute since Vince Vaughn's been and stuff. I don't know if he's still like just
Your boy's
kinda
in it.
doing victory laps in later in his career.
Your boy's in it too, Jimmy Tatro.
All right. Well, now we know this is goated. Sure, why not? Yeah.
Your boy's in it. Your boy's in it. He plays a character named Jimmy Boy, fittingly.
Yeah, man. Hell yeah.
There's Arturo Castro is also in this. He was in the Weird Al movie. Arturo Castro plays a
I do
character
like him,
named
yes.
he plays a character named Dumbass Tony.
Okay.
So this thing, one red flag of this movie too. It's directed by a man named Ben David Grabinski. Ben David is one word. David Grabinski.
Is this like Congressman Mark Wayne Mullins, where it's like, okay, get over yourself?
No, I know, right? Like I've always said two first name guys a red flag, but that is like if you have like Matt Ryan, like you know what I mean? That's your name, like two first name guy. Matt Ryan being your first and last name. Like Ben David Grabinski, he's a Polak, so I have to like him. You know. His name sounds like a slur against Chicagoans. Like, you know, every fucking Tom Dick Grabinski's gonna be up my ass this week. You know, it sounds like a slur against Chicagoans. Anyway, though, Mike and Nick and Alice. That is our movie next week, for better or for worse. I'm curious to see what the hell this thing is. It was on my radar, though. I will say that much, though. So, be our first streaming movie since Christ lost his sandals too. We haven't reviewed a movie on streaming in a long time. And then I just realized that was a great thing to say coming up on Easter week next week. Anyway, that's our show tonight. Sleepless with Steve. Great show with Dom. I really appreciate you hosting tonight, my friend. Always a pleasure. Next week, Joel will be back. We'll probably give him the Florida Talk Project Hail Mary. And we will be back next week. Same time, same place. For Dominic Guanzon, Joe Viso, and yours truly, this has been Sleepless with Steve.